Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to CVN 9731 Project Management Framework. We will continue our lecture today, and the topic for today's lecture is going to be about project monitoring, control, and closing the project. So the learning objectives are understanding the methods of effective monitoring and controlling the project, learn how to analyze project, the earned value of project and actually compare it with the projected costs and a schedule as you've done during the project planning. And also learning different types of project controlling processes. So we got monitoring and controlling. So monitoring is just you look at all the data in terms of the time, cost, the scope, performance, etc., and you collect and record and report the data. In the controlling phase, we will have some actions. So based on what you have been monitoring versus what you've planned. So in controlling phase, you do, which is going to be at the same time as monitoring, you'll do some actions in order to, if for example, running over time or the cost has been increased compared to the planned budget, you'll do some actions in order to get everything back on track. Okay, so what kind of data do we need to gather? So first of all, for each task or work package, you got an actual start and finish date. So you plan some start and finish date, but most of the time it doesn't happen at the exact time that you plan it. So you need to gather data when actually is started and when it's going to be finished or when it's finished, and then compare it with your baseline as per your project plan. So actual duration on hours worked. So for example, if there is any timesheet, if applicable, or you put, for example, 1 month or 2 months for a specific task, but it takes longer or shorter than that, then you need to gather those data and again go back to your project timeline baseline and just compare it to what has been planned accordingly. So the money spent, so the actual money that you paid for invoices, for receipt, for salary, or any other hidden costs that you've had, for example, maybe some transport costs or some taxes or some other things that you need, delivery fees or some extra consultation that you need to do. So those kind of things will be added to the thing that you didn't plan for during the project planning. So these are some of the data that you will gather. So what else do you think that you need to gather during the project execution? So we discussed about the actual start and finish date, duration, the hours worked, the money spent. So what else? Yeah, the type of activities. So for example, some of the tasks hasn't yet been started, the resources, the performance that we've done. So we're just not looking at the how it's going to start and finish, but how it's going along the way. So we are not just leave it when it's started and come back when it's supposed to be finished. So we just constantly monitor it and see that how's the performance against the criteria. Any licenses, certification that we required, yes, all those things. Procurement task, construction. Yep. So anything that is related to the project and the performance of the project, money-wise or time-wise, or just doing the scope and performance. So you need to monitor it and gather data and compare it to what you've planned. Okay. So now you got all these data. The best way to store it nowadays is just in a cloud. So that's as we discussed before. So you can have a shared drive and specify in which folder who are the people that need to have access, and then you can share it with a group of people. Okay, so but during the project, not everything goes as planned. So sometimes you need to do some changes, which we discuss. How do you do the change management process, which you evaluate, add it to the log, submit it to the review board, and they discuss it over there in order to approve or reject that change. And then after that, you make a decision. So if the change was approved, then you assign an owner. So every change and every risk has an owner. So that's typically the person who submitted the change request is the owner of that change. And so you need to update the project baseline. So if there is any new task or date or resources changes required for this change, you need to update the project baseline in order to monitor this change as well. And also the owner reports on the progress and update the log after final hours and costs are known. So this is the responsibility of the change owner. If you got any significant changes, for example, the change request needs to be approved by the customer or the executive board. This also needs to be looked through and see that if this big change is going to be possible. If you have any emergency change, then it's the responsibility of the project manager to organize an emergency meeting with the review board and also customer or executive board of that company in order to go through that change and see that what would be the best option to take. Okay. But sometimes the changes are very big, so it's going to be the change in the project scope. So who do you think that might ask to change or add to the project scope? Yep. The clients, the owner, stakeholders. So these are the main people that can ask major changes to project scope. So normally they ask for more as they figure out new opportunity as the project process, but unfortunately with the same budget and resources. So if it's the case, and you are the project manager, what do you do? Do you accept anything that they say, or do you just simply reject, or what's your approach? Yes, the best thing is just try to meeting and discuss things. And there are two scenarios. One thing that you try to avoid it, but it's not possible, so it goes away. But at least they need to understand what would be the consequences. So as a project manager, sometimes they ask me, but they don't know the consequences. And if you accept that without telling the owner or customers what would be the consequences in terms of the project delay and project costs, then if you accept that and if you run into trouble later on, they would be angry and saying that what's going on. And you, if at that time you will say that this is the change that you requested, but they may say that we didn't know that it's going to increase the cost that much or increase the delay that much, and that was your responsibility as the project manager to tell us. So it's good to organize a meeting, but before the meeting, just do your homework and study if and if even if you have like a team that's dedicated to review this change, look and see that what would be the consequences. And then you can present the consequences, and maybe based on the consequences, they may decide that it's not a good idea to change the project scope. So then you can just get away with it. But the best thing to do is that you do it formally. So if it's going to happen informally, then you don't have any evidence after that. So ask the stakeholder, owner, or customer to to just send you a official uh, project change. So it's, that's going through the change management process. And then after that, you can assign a review, a few people to review it, including yourself, and get all the data and consequences and everything. And then you can organize a meeting and discuss it with the stakeholder. And hopefully they can agree that this is not going to work, or they may say that, we can give you extra budget and resources in order to get it done because this is very important. So also team members can ask for changes in the project scope. And this is something that you also need to take in because maybe they found extra work might be required to complete the job. So you cannot just ignore that and say that, this needs to be done no matter what. So you need to, again, ask all the information. The information is very important, and that is part of the project monitoring and control. So get all the information, get all the opinions and just go through it yourself, or just gather a team of experts, or maybe you can also ask a consultant or something and see that if there is a big problem that it needs to be resolved. If it's the case, then yourself or that team member can request the change management process, and you can organize a meeting. If it's an emergency, you can organize an emergency meeting with the stakeholder. If it's not, then it's go through its own process, and then you can discuss with the stakeholders and project owners about any possible solution. You can also suggest some solutions, or the team members can suggest solution, and you can state the problem, the possible solutions, the consequences of each solution, and the consequences of if we don't do anything. So these all things you need to provide to the stakeholders so they can make an informed decision. So we got a term in project management, which is often you will encounter, and it's a scope creep. So scope creep is undocumented changes to scope without corresponding changes to the schedule or budget. So there is no change management process. So it's based on the informal request from the stakeholders mainly, and the requirement and expectation are not clearly identified by the customer. So as a project manager, you need to avoid the scope creep as much as possible. And the best way of doing that, as I mentioned, is just asking for formal requests of change management and then go through that and discuss the consequences, etc. So how to prevent the scope creep? Just resist unrealistic expectation. Uh, uh, Before asking them, to just do it formally, if there is any chance, you can discuss with them and just so they can you can persuade them that it's not a good idea to do that. Just do it. And if they insist to do it, just ask for an official change management process to be launched. And at the meeting, you can renegotiate the scope statement based on the data that you gathered and the information that you can provide with them. Or if it's at the start of the project and you can see that this customer is constantly changing the scope, maybe you can discuss with them agile methodology, which probably better suits the customer in these circumstances if they want to keep change the scope. The other thing that's, as a project manager, you need to have an eye on is monitoring and controlling the risk. So for each risk, as you identify during the planning, you got an owner, and which is identified in the risk management plan. So the owner of each risk must monitor the risk and update the project manager if something unexpected happened during the execution of the project. So the risk owner should implement proactive risk response. So they know the risk, they know that it's something that might happen. So they need to be proactive and have some solutions in their pocket in order to use it when this risk happens. They also need to watch for any signs of risk unfolding. So they can see that these circumstances may end up triggering that risk. So that's something that they need to keep an eye on and monitor the events that trigger the contingency plans. So again, during the project planning, you got some contingency budget and things that you set aside. So you monitor the risk, how it's evolved, and do you need to use some of those contingency budgets? And when the risk happens, so you just launch the risk response and track the result and see that if it gets mitigated or if it's escalated. And as a risk owner, the person needs to report the risk status and update the project log. So you as a project manager can also track how this risk is responded and whether it's mitigated or escalated. One thing that you don't need to, you shall not forget is that low priority risk. And also new risks that can be evolved during the project. Maybe there is some change in the project scope or some other changes. So if that happens, you also need to review your risks and see that if there is new risk going to be affecting your project. Okay, so another thing that you need to monitor and control during project execution is the earned value analysis. Earned value analysis is a quantitative way that you can monitor and see that how every tasks and the project in general is going forward. For example, is it going to be over the budget by the time that the project is complete, or is it going to be large delays in completion of the project? So earned value analysis is a tool that you can use as a project manager during the project execution in order to monitor how the project is going so far. And based on that, you can forecast how from now on, how the project is going to proceed and whether if there is any big impact on the budget and the time of completion. So you can do all these calculations. You can, it depends on the project. If, for example, a 1-year project, maybe you can do this earned value analysis each quarter or each month. Or if it's a longer project, let's say 10-year project, you can do it every quarter or every 6 months or every year. Okay, so let's see that what is the definition of the earned value. So earned value is the financial value a project has earned based on the work completed. So for example, you want to renovate your house and there are different parts of the house that needs to be renovated. For example, the kitchen, bathroom, and the lounge. So, and each part when it's complete, so you got some earned value. So which means that if you complete all these 3 pieces, then you achieve 100% of what was planned. So your earned value is also 100%. But if only one of these 3 things has been completed, so it's just 1/3 is going to be earned value. So again, so this is the simplest way that we can describe the earned value. So earned value. So we got one question here. Earned value is the dollar at the current time before project is finished. So earned value is so let me explain it that way. So for a specific job or whole project, you put some budgets for completion. So you, for example, you need 100,000 to complete this job. But and for example, let's get back to the other question. So let's say 30K was for bathroom renovation, 30K for launch, and 40K for kitchen. So then you realize that your bathroom, for example, is finished. So it means that 30,000 that you allocated to complete that task at the time. So let's say that you are in middle of the project and your bathroom is completed, but the other two things are not finished yet. So it means that you completed and the earned value is going to be that 30,000 that you at the start of the project you plan to finish the bathroom. So that is your earned value. The actual cost is different from the earned value, which I'm going to discuss it later. So maybe you plan 30,000, but the actual cost of renovating the bathroom is actually 40K. But this is something else. But the earned value is reaching the value that you planned during the project planning. Okay, so earned value analysis, it helps to evaluate project schedule and cost performance. You can see that if the thing that you plan is going to work as per schedule and also as per cost that you plan during project planning. EVA also shows how much time and money were spent on project versus how much work is completed. So this also can help you. So when we talk about earned value analysis, it's about not just earned value. So just comparing the earned value versus planned value, actual value, the thing that I'm going to discuss it further. So we got three main measures that calculated throughout the project or as per milestones. So first of all, you got the planned value. So planned value is going to be the estimated cost to complete the work or budgeted cost of the schedule. So for a specific task, as we discussed, for example, for the bathroom, we plan to finish it within 6 months, and we need to spend 30K for that bathroom. So earned value is the value earned by completing the work. So if after 6 months we finish the job, then the earned value, for example, for that bathroom example again, is going to be the same 30K, so which we finish. But if we haven't finished it yet, so we are in the middle of the job, so the earned value at that time is going to be half of the planned value. So if we plan 30K, and 6 months is passed and we finish just only half of the bathroom renovation, so the earned value is going to be half of the planned value. And also we got the actual value. So actual value is actually the amount of money that you paid. So based on your invoices, receipts, salary, etc. So when 6 months, for example, passed, how much actually did you pay for example, for the plumber, for accessories that you use in the bathroom, and for everything else. So how much actually paid by the time that you're doing the analysis. Okay, so we got some question here. So let's go one by one. I think that I'll get back to your question because we haven't finished with complete explanation of the earned value analysis. So just hang on with your questions and for next 15-20 minutes, and even after I completely explain the earned value analysis, if you still have any questions, please put it here, and also I got back to your question as well. Okay, so this is a typical graph and analysis for earned value. You can see that we got two axes. One axis is cost, the y-axis, and x-axis is time. And this is the starting project of the starting time of the project, and this is time now, and this is the finish time of the project as you plan. So you can see all three things that we discussed: the planned value, the actual cost, and earned value. As you can see, the planned value is a solid line because based on what you planned from the start of the project to the end of the project, at each stage, based on your plan, you know exactly how much cost did you plan. So this is not going to change. This is what you planned at the start of the project, and hence it's just a solid line. But for earned value and actual cost is going to be something that as project proceeds, you get the earned value and actual cost. So anything after now, so as you can see with the dots, is just a forecast. You don't know how much the earned value is going to be in tomorrow or next week from now, and also the actual cost from any time in the future. So these are only prediction that I'm going to show you how do you predict future of earned value and actual cost. Okay, so there are some things. First of all, we can see that we got planned value and earned value. So if you compare these two, you can see that earned value is constantly below the planned value. So which means that we plan something um, to be finished for example, by this time. So and the cost would be that much, but actually we haven't finished it yet. So it means that we need to spend more time in order to get that stage that we can finish the job as per planned value. So the earned value is seems that we are behind the schedule. And also the actual cost is higher than planned value. So it means that although by this time, there are two things happening. First of all, we haven't completed the job yet, which earned value is lower than the planned value, but also we have spent more money, which means the actual cost is higher than the planned value. So these are the main things that you can see from this figure. Not all the projects have this scenario. Maybe your actual cost is lower than your planned value, or earned value is higher than planned value. So it depends on how the project is proceeding. So the other thing that we have is estimate to complete and variance at completion, which I'm going to describe these terms later. Okay, we got some variances based on comparing the actual cost plan value and earned value. So first of all, let's discuss about the schedule variance. So a schedule variance is the difference between the earned value and planned value. So as we discussed, so you plan that this job needs, for example, need to finish by 6 months, and you plan, let's say, 30K to finish this job. But the 6 months is gone, and which is your by the time of your plan value, and you haven't completed that job. Only 2/3 of that is completed. So 2/3 of 30K is going to be 20K. So you still need to run. After that 6 months, you need some more days in order to finish that job, in order to that 30K that you plan is going to be completed. So this gives you a schedule variance and shows that if the earned value is lower than the planned value, which means that you're behind the schedule. And if your earned value is higher than the planned value, it means that you're ahead of a schedule. If the earned value and the planned value is the same, it means that you're just on the right spot as you've planned, which is quite uncommon. The other thing is the cost variance. So cost is the difference between the earned value and actual cost. So go back to the example of the bathroom. So we are 6 months past and we're supposed to spend 30K, which are planned value, but actually we finished 2/3 of job. But 2/3 of job, it means that we're supposed to spend only 20K by that time. So our end value is 20K. But actually we spent, let's say 40K. So which means that we are 20K higher than earned value. Actual cost is 20K higher than the earned value. And our cost variances are going to be negative, which means that we have spent more uh, and the project is over budget. So the difference between the amount we budgeted for the work that has been performed today, that is the earned value, and the actual cost of the work is going to be the cost variance. So if the cost variance is positive or zero, it means that we are on track and we are not over budget. But if the cost variance is going to be negative, it means that we spent more that we're supposed to spend. Okay, so that was the schedule variance and the cost variance. We also got time variance. So time variance is the difference in the time scheduled for the work that has been performed, the scheduled time, and the actual time used to perform it. So let's go back to the bathroom. So let's say this is the 6 months that we discussed. In these 6 months, you haven't completed the job yet. As you can see, let's say, for example, it's a little bit higher, but let's say that is 2/3 is completed. So you need more time in order to finish it, to get that to that 30K that you planned for. So that 30K means that the completion of the job. So you may spend more or less, so it doesn't matter. That is the actual cost. But here is the 30K. It means that your job is completed. So in order for your job to be completed, it hasn't been completed after 6 months, so you need more time. So this is the time that you're behind the schedule, and it's time variance. So this is your actual time, as you can see here, and this is your scheduled time that you need to finish it here, and this is the time now. So a negative variance indicates that you are behind the schedule, like here. So your schedule time is here, so it's lower than the time now, which is here. So how do you evaluate all these things? So the best thing to do is just using your Gantt chart, and you got a baseline as per your project plan, as you can see in these gray lines here. And as your project proceeds, you can look at the how is when it's started, when it's going to be completed, and based on that, you can analyze the earned values. So for example, here that you can see that this is the baseline finish, for example, that for each task that you put, but you can see that the tasks are delayed. So this is the time variance that you can see. So it's going to be here, the time variance is going to be 25 days, for example. Okay, so there are some indices that help you in order to better understand the overall performance of the project. One is the cost performance index. The cost performance index is the earned value divided by the actual cost. So we always want to have higher end value compared to actual costs. So if this cost performance index is greater than 1, which means that we are right on the track in terms of the cost. But if the cost performance index is lower than 1, which means that we are over budget. You got also a schedule performance index, which is the earned value divided by the planned value. So planned value is that based on your schedule that you put in the project plan and is your baseline. So if your end value is higher than the planned value, so it means that you're finishing job sooner that you plan, so you're ahead of a schedule. But if your end value is lower than per planned value, which means the schedule performance index is going to be less than 1, then you are behind the schedule. You also have time performance index, so which is the schedule time divided by the time now. So again, the same thing. You want your schedule time ahead of the time that you're now in order to make sure that you are right on track. You also have the cost schedule index, which is the combination of the cost performance and the schedule index. As you can see, these two is multiplied by each other, and this is going to be the cost schedule index. As we discussed, so if the project, the cost and the schedule on the plan, based on the plan, so we always need to have value of 1 or higher. But if we are behind the schedule and we are over budget, so these values are going to be less than 1. Okay, and what does it mean when these indices are below 0.5? It means that you're doing a terrible job as a project manager. You probably need to find a better job because you're highly over budget, you're way over schedule, and the things are ugly. Okay, so let's have a look at this figure and see that how we can calculate these things. So again, we got a planned value. So from the start of the project to the end of the project, so this is 24 months. You can see that how much money you plan to spend from time 0 to completion of the project, which is around 74K. And this is also the thing that you by the time. So you can see that after 12 months, you don't have any earned value or actual cost because it's in the future. We cannot predict it. And you can see the thing that we discussed here. So the cost variance. So the cost variance was the difference between the actual cost and earned value. So actual cost here is higher than the earned value. So it means that the cost variance is -5. And also your earned value is lower than planned value. So your schedule variance is also negative. So it's -20. So it means that you're behind the schedule. But the good thing is that at least your actual cost is not at this stage is not higher than your planned value. But because your earned value is much lower than the planned value, by the time that you get into the actual work that needs to be finished by now, then your actual cost is also going to increase. And that's the reason that your cost variance is negative. So in terms of your cost performance index, you can see the CPI is the earned value divided by the actual cost. So the earned value is 30 and your actual cost is 35. So the CPI is 0.86, which is lower than 1, but is not very low. So still is not that bad. But on the other hand, your SPI, which means that your earned value divided by the planned value. So earned value is 30, but your planned value after 12 months should be 50K, and which means that your SPI is zero point 0.6. So zero point 0.6 means that after 12 months, you haven't done much. So only 60% of the task that's supposed to be completed after 12 months. So you're way behind the schedule. So which means that in order to complete the job by the end of the project, you need to ramp up your earned value, which seems that in this case, your planned value is kind of the rate is decelerating, so it's getting plateau, and your earned value is just moving up. So maybe you were a little bit behind the schedule at the beginning, but things work out, and so now you're right on the track. So hopefully, if this earned value is just keep increasing by this rate, then you after 24 months, it can reach to the planned value at 24 months, which means if you can do that, then the project back on track and you can finish the project as per schedule. Okay. So before going to the completion forecast, I think that's now perhaps is a good time to answer your question. So I'll go through your question. So earned value is the dollar at the current time before a project is finished. I think that we discussed the earned value, but if still you got any question, let me know. So that perhaps is not the best description of the earned value. I think there will be calculation question in the final exam. I will discuss about quiz 2 and final exam at the end of this lecture. So you planned it to cost 30K, and that was the actual cost, but somehow the end value is 40K. So yes, so you plan it, for example, after 6 months, this work needs to be finished, and you planned for 30K for this work to be done. But when 6 months pass, only 2/3 of the work is done. So it means that only 20K of the work is done, which is your earned value. But if your actual cost is 40K, it means that you're even 20K higher than the earned value. So your cost variance is going to be minus 20. Earned value equals revenue. No, just earned value is just a measure of the uh, project completion or task completion. So it's not necessarily money, right? No, it's not the money that you paid. It's so earned value is the way that you describe how much of the work is completed based on the costs that you assign to it. So, for example, if a job uh, needs to be completed within 6 months and you need to spend 40K for completing that job, by the time that you review it, you see that how much supposed to spend by that time and how much work is completed. So that's the earned value is going to be the percentage of the work completed at that time multiplied by the planned value. So it means that if your planned value at that time is 100K, but only 2/3 of the job is done by that time, so your earned value is going to be 2/3 of 100,000, which is your planned value. Yep. I think I just answered this question. So it's the percentage of the completed task, but in the budget terms. if SPI less than 1. So if I didn't get your question, but SPI less than 1, it means that you're behind the schedule. It's not possible that you got SPI or CPI less than 0 because none of these terms are negative. Okay, so this is the way that you analyze what has been done so far in terms of your earned value, the actual cost, and the planned value. And you do some indices that we discussed, cost performance index, schedule performance index, etc., in order to see that how the project has been going so far. But as a project manager, you need to forecast to see that how it's going to be from now on based on the prior performance. So based on these tools and based on the rate that things has been completed, you can forecast how the thing is going to work out in the future. So this is based on the uh, prior performance. It's not just based on, for example, if something change in the future, if you add more resources to the job or do something kind of crashing or fast tracking or something like that, then perhaps these forecasts are not suitable. This is because this is just kind of a manual way for you to just get things on the track. But if you don't do anything, if things just go as normal, so you can say that the previous performance in terms of the earned value and actual cost is going to be in the same rates for the future work. And based on that, you can see that by the time that the project is going to be completed, how much you're going to be over budget, how much more you need to spend, and how much is going to be the delay of the project. Okay. So one thing that you do is estimate cost to complete. So estimate cost to complete is, maybe I can just show it here. Maybe I'll go back to, okay. So estimate cost to complete, it means that by the end of the project, how much cost is going to be the total cost? And what is the difference from that cost to the cost that we already spent? So this is going to be an estimate that you can say. And for example, you're predicting that this line is going to go like this, and by this time that the project is finished, and this is the amount of money that you need to spend from now until the completion of the project. And variance at completion is the difference between the planned value by the completion of the project, the cost that is in your budget, and the money that you're going to spend to complete this project based on your estimation of cost at completion of the project. So how do you calculate estimate cost completion? So you got a budget at completion, so you know how much you're gonna spend at completion. So, and then you deduct the earned value. So you deduct the earned value from that and you divide it by the cost performance index. And that gives you the estimated cost to complete the project. And estimate cost at completion is going to be this ETC plus the amount expended to date, which is the actual cost. So this is going to be estimated cost at completion. So let's have a look at this figure. Then maybe it's going to be more clear. Again, we got the earned value, we got the planned value, and we got the actual cost. The plan value is a solid line. As you can see, we know from the start to the end how much we're going to spend. And this is the time now, as you can see, 80. And this is the scheduled time. So we're supposed to finish the job at this time, but we got 10 days delay. So we are actually here. And this is the schedule variance. So EV minus PV, and we are behind the schedule. And this is the cost variance, EV minus AC, and this is the cost variance. So this is our performance so far. What we want to calculate is that estimate at completion. So how much we're gonna spend compared to the budget at completion. So this budget at completion, so we suppose to spend that much by the finishing of the project, but based on your actual cost so far, we forecast that we are going to run over the budget, and this is going to be estimate at completion. And the difference between this estimate at completion, estimated cost at completion, and actual cost, this is going to be estimate to complete. So this means that this amount of money more we need to spend until the project is completed. Okay, so we got some question here. Isn't it easier to just subtract BAC minus actual cost to date? No, the reason is that the BAC is supposed to be the budget at completion, regardless of how the project going to perform. But now you see that your actual cost is actually higher than your plan value. So the BAC here, so estimate at completion is going to be higher if the cost is going to run like this. So we cannot just we cannot just deduct the BAC minus actual cost to date. How is EAC equal to EAC minus AC? Let's have a look. We didn't say anything like that EAC equals to EAC minus AC. ETC equals to EAC minus AC. Yeah, that's right. So EAC is estimated cost at completion. Okay. So overall, how much we gonna spend to complete the project? ETC is from now on how much we're gonna spend. So we spent, for example, which is the actual cost. We spent, let's say, that's 100K so far, which is going to be our AC. And based on the estimated cost to complete, we realize that we need to spend another 100K to finish the project. So 100 plus 100 is going to be 200. So estimated cost at completion, or EAC, in this case is going to be 200. And you may ask, why how is this being calculated? So this is just a mathematical term based on the slope of the thing that is going. As you can see, it's divided by CPI. So based on the slope of differences between the AC and EV, which is included in the cost performance index, you can predict that how much, based on that slope, how much is going to be completed by the end of that project. So this method of estimated cost to complete is the simplest method and simplest calculation. There are other methods of doing that as well, which you can also include a schedule performance index or other method that you can do, but this is the simplest way of doing the estimated cost to complete. Yep, so this is going to be extrapolation. So we don't know how much is going to be our cost by the completion of the project. And based on this graph, as you can see, that's based on how much is going to be differences between the AC and EB. We predict that estimated at completion is going to be that much. Okay. This is another graph. As you can see here, again, we got the plan value, actual cost, and earned value. You got the difference between plan value and earned value, which are schedule variance, and you got the difference between the earned value and your actual cost, which is going to be the cost variance. You also have got estimate to complete and how much you're going to spend to complete this project. And if you add that to your actual cost, this is going to be estimate and completion. So by the completion of the project, it's going to happen at this time, you're going to spend that much. And for earned value, because you're behind the schedule, which means that you're supposed to finish the project at this time, but now because the earned value is lower, then you got some schedule slip. So your project is going to be finished later. So it means that there is an element of risk here because based on the analysis of the earned value so far and actual cost, we forecast that by the end of the project, we are going to have some higher cost over budget, over the planned budget, and also it's going to be some delays in completion of the project. So over cost, which means that if we got some contingency, etc., or some management reserve, that we can just mitigate that risk. So we have enough money. But if we don't, then we need to do some risk management analysis and just discuss it with the stakeholder and see that what you can do to bring down the cost. Otherwise, the project is not going to be completed. The same thing for the schedule slip. So you need to see that what kind of thing that you can do. For example, crashing or just using some changing in the process or looking at the critical paths and see that how you can finish the project sooner. So the earned value analysis is telling you how's your project performance so far, and based on the forecast that you can do, you can see that if there is going to be any risk in terms of running over budget or delay in the project completion. So before it happens, you can do some you can provide some solutions in order to make sure that it won't happen. Okay, I think let's have a 10 minutes break and then we can get back at 2:15 and then we can continue the rest of lecture. How often it needs to be done during the project execution? It depends on the type of the project that you have and the length of the project. If it's a very short project, 1 year, maybe you want to do it every quarter or every month. If it's a longer project, let's say 10 year or something, maybe you do it every quarter, every 6 months, or every year. So it depends on the length of your project and also the sensitivity of the project. And sometimes even you see that the project is not moving, so you want to do some earned value analysis regardless of the plan time that you wanted to do. Okay, let's continue. So you can see 6 possible scenarios. We got 6 different graphs showing that the plan value, earned value, and actual cost. So let's go through them one by one. So the scenario A, you can see that your earned value is actually higher than your plan value. So which means that you're ahead of a schedule. So you're completing tasks uh, com- sooner compared to what you planned before. And surprisingly, your actual cost is also lower than both your plan value and your earned value. So it means that you're doing a superb job in terms of the cost saving. So your actual cost is lower than planned value and also earned value, which is a great scenario. But probably it's not that likely. So the second scenario, scenario B, you can see that your earned value again is higher than your planned value. So again, you're ahead of a schedule, but your actual cost is higher than your planned value. So higher than the cost that you said that is going to take in order to finish that job, but it's actually is lower than your earned value, which again is a good thing because your end value is higher than your actual costs, which means that your cost variance is also positive. So schedule variance positive, your cost variance positive. So B is also a very good scenario, which means that you are ahead in terms of the schedule and also you are running the project under the budget. And also you got then, so both A and B are great scenarios. And then you got scenario C, which probably is more likely and more common. And you got your baseline plan value is higher than your earned value, which means that you're behind the schedule. So your schedule variance is negative, and your actual cost also higher than your earned value. So which means that your cost variance is also negative, and you're spending more than you're supposed to expend. In scenario D, your earned value is lower than your planned value, so you're behind the schedule, and your actual cost is higher both than planned value and earned value. So, and if you compare the actual cost to earned value, you got a significant negative cost variance. So you're spending too much than you're supposed to be. Then you got scenario E, which again, your earned value and actual cost are lower than the planned value. So again, you're behind the schedule variance is negative, but because your earned value is higher than your actual cost, in terms of the budget, you're okay, and your cost variance is positive. Scenario F is a way that you actually ahead of a schedule because your earned value is higher than the baseline plan value, but your actual cost is higher than your earned value, which means that your cost variance is negative. Although you are ahead of a schedule, but you're spending more, and hence your actual cost is higher than your earned value. So which one do you think that is the most common scenario in project management? Yep. So C and D is more common. So probably earned when your earned value, most of the time your earned value is close to plan value if you've done a very good job, but most of the time is a lower value compared to the plan value. So C is a better scenario in terms of your actual cost and earned value is close to each other, but D is the worst case scenario here because your actual cost and earned value is going to it shows us that the cost variance is too much. Scenario A and B, as I mentioned, is probably it's less likely something that happened, and it means that either you got plenty of budget that you just kind of have a very relaxed schedule and budget in terms of getting the actual cost down compared to the earned value and PV. But most of the time, it doesn't happen, the A and B. So C and D are common. E and F also can happen, but as I mentioned, probably C and D is going to be a more likely scenario. How would you describe the difference between situation B and F? Yep. So in situation B, you got both a schedule variance and the cost variance positive. But in a scenario C, your schedule variance is positive. So like scenario B, you are ahead of a schedule. But in scenario C, the cost variance is negative. So if you compare earned value is lower than the actual cost in scenario F, so your cost variance is negative. But in scenario B, it's the opposite. So your earned value is higher than your actual cost, so your cost variance is positive. What is the difference between C and D? Okay, so C and D, both the schedule variance and the cost variance are negative. So that both have in common. But the difference is that in scenario D, your actual cost is actually higher than your planned value and is significantly higher than your earned value, which means that your cost variance is very negative. And it means that you're over the budget, significantly over the budget. But in scenario C, although your cost variance is negative, but you can see that the actual cost and earned value are closing to each other. So it means that it's not significantly negative cost variance, although that you are behind the schedule, but proportionally you spend less. That can be a scenario that you got some delays in terms of the starting the project, but you're not paying anyone. So you have like a contractors or vendors or something like that. That's your running cost without doing anything is not that much. But scenario D is probably is in the likelihood of that you're paying a lot of staff, but there is for some reason the work has been get delayed and they don't have anything to do, and because of that, earned value is considerably lower compared to the actual cost. D is the worst situation or compared to the C. So probably one of the worst situation in any projects. Okay, so if you have any questions, let me know. I think that was almost all about the earned value analysis. So if you have any question now, if you don't, after that, I've got a bonus points question that I'm going to ask. So again, the rules is that you need to answer the question on a Slido. So you can join a Slido using this hashtag CVN9731 at slido.com, or just scan the QR code. And you need to put your answer in the question section, which I'm going to moderate. And the first 3 people that answer the question correctly get 1 bonus mark. And only the first 3 people, not anyone that answered the question. So that's the rule. So hope you can comply with the rule. And if you don't have any question, I can just move on and show you the example. So the example is going to be calculation based on what you learned so far about the indices and thing that we discussed. So here's the question. Assuming the following work package info, you got the expected or planned cost of 1,500. You got expenditure up to now, which is 1,350. Completion up to now is that 2/3 of the job has been completed. And the scheduled completion was 50 days, but it will be finished 10 days later. So based on that, calculate the cost variance, schedule variance, CPI, SPI, CSI, ETC, and EAC. So the first 3 people that can give me the correct answer for all of these indices can get 1 bonus mark. Don't forget to put your ZID and your name, or just ZID. And then I will announce the people that answered correctly after I receiving your response. So the rule for giving it to only the first three is that we cannot, is it just kind of like a competition getting the bonus mark? And it's not part of the assessment for this course to give it to all. So only the first three. So we can't just, we cannot just wait for everyone to answer it and give the bonus mark. So this is not going to be a bonus mark then. This is then it's going to be an assessment. Yeah, I mean it's difficult, but that's the best way that we can cope and do it just like a normal way. Okay, one answer I got that's the last two part is incorrect, so I cannot accept it. I've got another one here. So I've got the first person that answered it correctly, Z5300133. Got another answer, Z52844053. Your ETC and EAC is incorrect, so maybe you need to revise it and send it back. Okay, I'll wait another 1 or 2 minutes. So Z52844053 and Z5279610. So thank you all. So, but as a rule, only these three people get the bonus mark. If you're in the middle of calculation or if you haven't finished it, please don't send your answers because this competition is finished. But thank you all for participating. I hope that you understand how to calculate these things, and that's the main aim for doing these bonus questions. Okay, so that's the way that you do uh, the cost variance, so earned value minus the actual cost. Here, the actual cost, we got 1,350, and the earned value is 2/3 of the plan value, which is 1,500. And the schedule variance is going to be earned value minus the plan value, which is going to be minus 500. As you can see, the project is behind the schedule and also over budget. The CPI is going to be earned value divided by actual costs, going to be 0.74, and SPI the schedule performance index is going to be 0.67, and CSI, cost schedule index, is going to be 0.49, which is below 0.5. So it's not a very well-run project. And we got the ETC, which is going to be budget at completion minus earned value divided by CPI, which is going 676. And estimate at completion is going to be the sum of estimate to complete plus actual cost, which is going to be 2026. Okay, I've got another question here. You can find it on the slide. So it's a similar calculation. So you can do something also at home in order to practice these calculations. So one thing that's you need to know in order to calculate the earned value is just estimating the percentage of task completion. So how do you do that? So we are talking about 2/3, 50%, 20%. So how do you do this kind of estimating of the percentage of task completion? So first rule is just 50-50. So you can say that 50% in the beginning, and when the job is completed, you can say that another 50%. So it's generous in the beginning because you haven't started anything or haven't done anything, but you get 50%. And it's going to be conservative towards the end because you don't get another 50% unless the job is completed. Another way, which is highly conservative, is just 0-100%. So it means that until the job is fully completed, you cannot give any percentage. So that's way probably, if you got very small tasks that can take only 1 day or something like that, you can do that. But for large tasks that may take longer, probably doing that way, it's not going to be the best way of doing that, and perhaps it's not providing you with the best earned value analysis. The other thing that you can use critical input as it progresses. For example, you want to make a concrete structure, and you can use the amount of the concrete it consumes. So this concrete structure, for example, use 100 meter cubic of concrete, and based on how much concrete you've used so far. If you use, for example, 30 meter cubic, it means that it's 30% completion. If you use 70 meter cubic, it means 70% completion, and etc. So there is no single rule. So the project manager decide how they want to evaluate the task completion. So EV in the example was 1,000. So it's a 2/3 completion of the job, and the plan value is 1,500. So 2/3 of 1,500 is going to be 1,000. Okay, so designing the control process is another task that you need to do. So what points in the project we will try to exert control? So that's the question that you need to ask yourself. What is to be controlled and how it's measured? How much deviation from plan will be tolerated before we act? And what kinds of intervention should be used? So these are the questions that you ask as a project manager from yourself, and you set up a control process based on answering this question. So how do you exert control? What is the tolerance? For example, if you're behind a schedule, let's say 10%, you said that it should be fine, or if it's above 10%, you do some kind of crashing or fast tracking, etc., in order to get things on the track. So these kind of things that you need to ask yourself, and based on that, you can take actions during the controlling process. So there are 3 types of control process. One is the cybernetic control. You got go and no-go control, and also you got post control. So the cybernetic control system, so the system is constantly monitored. So for each task, you just monitor how it's going, and then constantly doing the earned value analysis. Constantly, it means that probably frequently. And when deviation is spotted, you do any corrective action. So it's not very common because it's, as you can see, it's a time-consuming thing to do, to constantly doing the earned value analysis, maybe every day or something like that. And you also must have a counteraction for every action. So, and it's not possible for complex systems. So the question is that does cybernetic control suit construction projects? Do you think yes, no? Do you have time to just check it on, like constantly monitoring it? And yeah, no, perhaps no. The other thing is go, no-go control. So testing to see if some preset condition has been met or not. So for example, after 3 months or after each milestone, you see that you do some earned value analysis and see that how the project performance is going. And you see that if the rest of the project is feasible to do based on the money that you spend, time you spend, if you're over the budget, if you achieve the things that you as a part of the scope, and based on that you decide what would be the next stage of the project. Are you going as a plan, or are you going to major changes in the plan, or just stop the project? So you data to be collected will match the critical elements of the project plan. So again, so far the scope has been completed or not? What about the schedule and budgets? And using the earned value analysis, so you're compared what you have so far compared to the plan. So, and then after that, you can have a meeting with your stakeholders and the project owner and see that how things going, and then decide if you want to go ahead or not. So the post control applied after the task job is done. It can be all the project, or can be the specific task, or it can be a work package. So the purpose is that to see that how things was played out during that particular task. If there's any lessons that we can learn from something that goes wrong, and we can fix it in the future task, or anything that works very well and we want to repeat it in the future tasks. So this is kind of a post control that we can do. So it's kind of the project managers see that how things can perform better in order to get the projects on the track, and based on that, perhaps increase the earned value and reduce the actual cost. So, and so the rest of the project can perform better than what has been done previously. So there are some problem tasks. So as you can see, the three of main problem tasks here. One is that incomplete task running behind the schedule. So if you encounter that problem, what do you do? Incomplete task running behind the schedule. So all things is important. So first of all, you need to understand why they're running behind the schedule. Is it underperformance of the staff, or is it something, for example, a product that is being delayed or something like that? So you need to understand what is the problem, and based on the problem, you try to fix the problem to make sure that get it back on track. Even though after fixing the problem, you cannot get it back on the track, then you can do the other things like fast tracking, rescheduling, crashing, etc., in order to make it work. Then you got the tasks that have not started as planned dates. So what do you do? Again, you need to understand why it hasn't been started yet, and see that's how you can resolve that. And if you cannot resolve it and then it cannot be started, maybe it's better to reschedule it and put it later, and just if it's not in the critical path. If it's in the critical path, then you need to, for example, do some kind of a crashing for the future tasks that are dependent on this task in order to get things back on track. The other thing is that over budget tasks that have not completed yet. So what do you do? What do you think? So you got a task that's the actual cost is much higher than your earned value. So what do you do? Yep. First of all, identify the problem, see that how what you can do, and see that the way that you can reduce the cost. Maybe you can just rearrange your staff that working on that, or just ordering the material with good quality but lower cost in order to reduce the budget. If you foresee that this task is going to massively over budget, then perhaps now is the time to organize a meeting with the owners and the stakeholder and see that uh, when you do also the forecast of the estimated budget to complete, and see if it's very high, then you need, and you cannot do anything about it, and you did all the uh, solution but didn't work out, so then it perhaps is the best time to just organize a meeting with the stakeholder and discuss the problem and see that and get them involved. Okay, so as you can see, during the monitoring and controlling, you need to do a lot of problem solving. So first of all, you need to focus on important matters. So ignore or delay on important matters, even if someone push you for a resolution. So just only focus on things that are important, perhaps is part of the critical path or is affecting your schedule and budget. So those kind of things that are important things. Fully understand the problem, investigate yourself, gather as much data as possible. So don't run into action before you getting all the information. So if you're behind a schedule, don't try just instantly do some kind of crashing or rescheduling or cost saving. So first of all, see what's the exact problem and see that what would be the best solution. Maybe you can have a brainstorming meeting with some of the staff or some of the stakeholders to see that what would be the best possible scenario in order to get things on the track. Prioritizing is very important as a project manager. So you get swamped with a lot of things. So you need to prioritize the problem based on the impact on the project. So you need to ask yourself, is this a problem affecting the critical path or significantly delay the project or increase the cost? If yes, then this is should have higher priority than the other things. So, and the last one, ask for help. From whom? From anyone that can help you. It can be someone from the team members, the stakeholders, a consultant, or friend, or another project manager, or uh, customer or the owner of the project. So as a project manager, you're not supposed to solve all the problems by yourself. That's the thing that you need to understand. Sometimes it's better to ask the others, and then based on all the information that you receive, you can make a best decision. So how to get the project back on track? We discussed that. You can do the fast tracking, you can do the crashing, you can assigning overtime to the staff so they can finish the job sooner. When the cost is over budget, you can use less expensive resources with same quality as much as possible, and avoid spending on unnecessary items or find a better deal without compromising the quality. So for example, you can do cost saving on the travel. So you can use, for example, public transport instead of using Uber, or instead of using taxi, or some other things that can be minor saving, but in overall, it can save you some money to make sure that your budget gonna meet. So if any of those things didn't work out, you're still behind the schedule and over the budget, maybe you can reduce the scope. So then you need to talk to the client and see that if they are happy to do that, perhaps they are not. But probably this is something that you need to inform them and say that, this is, we didn't expect that, we didn't plan for it. This is, we are way behind the schedule, the cost is running. We did all of these things, but it still didn't work out. Can we reduce the scope? And see that what they say. Or you can extend the project finish date and budget after getting approval from the project owner and stakeholder, which again is not going to be an easy thing to do and ask from them, but sometimes you don't have any other option rather than just either reducing the scope or delaying the project and asking for more budget. So first of all, let's start with the solution that you can authorize yourself. So for example, sometimes you can shuffle task assignments and resources, which is part of the crashing. And you can also use for crashing or just normal way of shuffling things, or use a slack time to finish overdue tasks. So that's another thing that you can do. And if these things doesn't work out, then you can ask the stakeholders about increasing the budget, lengthening the project, reducing the scope. The question is that how do you ask? So you need to provide them with all information and all the solution that you've done and ask for a meeting. If it's emergency, ask them to meet soon and then discuss the thing that you've done so far and see that first of all, if they have any idea, if there's any other solution that you haven't tried so far, or if not, then you can discuss how much money you need in order to increase the budget, and how do you want to spend that money is also important. So when you ask them for more money, you need to say like, this money is going to be spent on this, and that, and this is the budget. And if you do that, then we can finish it on time. Or otherwise, you can say that, this has been delayed by that much. This is our earned value analysis, and we are going to finish by 10 days or 1 month or 6 months later. And that's the reason, because we didn't get the material on time, etc., etc. Okay. So if you have any question, let me know. Otherwise, just before we finish today's lecture, I want to okay, so maybe I can answer this question and then we can go to the quiz. So one question, what is the difference between the planned value and the budget at completion? Okay, so the planned value is the amount of the budget that you plan to spend at each stage of the project. So it has started from the starting of the project until the end of the project. But the budget at the completion is a cumulative of all those planned values. So by the time that you reach at the end of the project, this is the amount of money that you plan to spend. So this is the budget at completion. I hope I answered your question. So another question, could you show the second question? I can't see it on a slide though. So the second question is the homework. Do you mean the homework question? It's not on a slide though. It's on the lecture slides, which you can find it on Moodle later. Yep. And after I finish, I will upload all the lecture slides, including the slide of the quiz time and the final exam time, so you don't need to take a picture of it. It's not on the slides that you have at the moment, but I will upload the final version of the slides after we finish today's, which you can get all the information, all the things that we have in the class. PV and BAC are not the same. So BAC is the planned value at the end of the project completion. Okay, it's a cumulative planned value at the end of the project completion. So planned value, there are two ways that you can show the planned value. Planned value as a cumulative planned value as you start the project until you finish the project. If you do that, then cumulative planned value at the end of the project is going to be the same at the budget at completion. And also there's another way of planned value, which is going to plan value for each task or for each work package. Then it's got its own planned value, which you can see that by the time that you evaluating and do the earned value analysis, what are the tasks that's supposed to finish and what are the planned value for those tasks, and then you can sum it up. What's the relationship between AC, BAC, and PV? AC is the actual cost, is the amount of the money that you've spent so far at the time. Planned value is the planned budget that you put for all the tasks that needs to be finished by that time. And budget at completion, as we discussed just now, BAC is the cumulative planned value at the finish time of the project. In the bonus mark question, PV and BAC are the same value. Yes, that's right, because in the question, we are at the end of the project. So, and that was the cumulative PV in that question. And because we are at the end of the project and that was cumulative, is a cumulative PV at the end of the project, it equals to budget at completion. BAC is not the same thing at earned value. So budget at completion is, as I mentioned, is the planned value, cumulative planned value at the end of the project. Earned value is the amount of the work that has been completed compared to the planned value. Okay, Pon, I think that's perhaps that's the last question I answer. If you have more question, I can wait after the lecture and then we can discuss in order to save time. So what situation BAC is not equal to PV? So BAC is only going to be equal to cumulative PV just at the end of the project. Other than that, the BAC is something different compared to PV. Okay, so I'll get back to your question after we discuss the quiz and final exam. If you can stay on after the lecture finish, I can answer all your questions. Okay, so the quiz 2 will be going to be similar to the quiz 1, and we are going to run it at the same time on Thursday at 6 p.m. on 12th of November, which is on week 9. And the duration is going to be 20 minutes, so I put another 5 minutes. So you have enough time in order to answer all the questions. We got 15 true and false and multiple questions from the contents of week 4 to 8. And the weight is going to be 25 marks out of the 100 marks for quiz 2. Final exam will be a Moodle Turnitin submission, and it will be assessed for plagiarism. And if you have high amount of plagiarism in your work, then you will fail. And it's going to be on Monday, 30th of November at 6 p.m. Sydney time. The duration is going to be 2 hours. And the question types are going to be long answers. So justification, explanation, analysis, calculations. And it will assess all the contents of the lectures and workshops. It has 60 marks out of 100 marks with 40% held, which means that you need to get 24 out of 60 for the final exam in order to pass this course. Okay. Yes, we only have 2 quizzes, quiz 1 and quiz 2, and the final exam, as you've probably seen it in the course profile. Okay, so I think that's the end of the lecture, and this is the information about the quiz and final exam. If you have any question about the quiz and final exam, let me know. Otherwise, I will get back to people about the question that they have about the ATC, AC, etc. Bon, I think that you didn't pay attention to the slide. So there are calculation tab, as you can see on the screen for the final exam. How many questions in the final exam? I haven't decided yet, but normally it's going to be around 6 to 10 or something like that. Depends on. There is no past papers because we updated the whole course for this term. So, and there is no previous exam that would be suitable for you. There's no, you already have the samples for in the workshops. So we got all those questions, similar questions in the workshop that you can have a look and to get an idea for the question in quiz 2. And it's going to be also done the quiz 1. So you know that's the nature of the questions. Yep, we put all the quiz questions in one page, like in quiz 1. So you receive the questions on Moodle. So you receive a PDF of questions on Moodle and also a Word file. Then you need to answer the question in the Word file and upload the same file with your ZID and your name on Turnitin. 20 minutes is too generous for 15 questions. As you know, for the quiz one, we only have 15 minutes. So I got extra 5 minutes here. I think that this would be plenty of time. It's just multiple choice and true and false. It doesn't need you to write anything or think too much. So if you study the course material very well, then you can just quickly answer the question. Probably it takes only 30 seconds for answering one question. So, you know, it's too much time for finishing. No, you cannot write on paper and scan it because then it's not going to be recognized by Turnitin and then you get 0 marks. So only typed answer would be accepted for the final exam, nothing else. If you, even the PDF is not accepted, so it only should be a Word file and the file that you typed in and send it. Yep, only Word file. No, you don't need to make a PDF. You just download the Word file, answer the question in the Word file, then upload it on Turnitin before the exam finishes. Yes, you will have reading time, maybe 15 minutes, maybe just 10 minutes. Yeah. Negotiating with every time. If you're required to need to write a formula in Word file, then I'll give you an instruction. But Word file, you got everything that you can do. So the number of questions we discussed, so it's going to be around 10 questions, but can be more or less. Quiz 2 only assess the contents of week 4 to 8, so not week 1 and 3, but 1 to 3. I cannot predict how many people get HD in this course, and I think that if you study very hard, you can get HD. So I'm very generous in giving marks, so you can ask other people that took courses with me before. So if you study hard, if you answer the questions in a good way, then you can get a very good mark in this course. Okay, thank you. So let's answer your question, Terry. So is EV equal to PV percentage of completion? That's right. Or BAC is percentage of completion. So it depends. First of all, EV is PV at percentage of multiplied percentage of completion. So that's right. But you don't need to calculate it EV as BAC percentage of completion. So BAC is just the budget at completion. So it can be equal to the PV when you're assessing at the completion of the project or the supposed completion of the project. Won't the extension of a schedule time affect the ETC and EAC? So the earned value, it means that your project is going to be extended. So and based on the ratio between the earned value and actual cost, you get the ETC and EAC. Okay, so it's already included in the calculations. But as I mentioned, this is the simplest version. There are other versions that in the calculation of the ETC, they also include the scheduled performance index as well. So the consultation session will be in the workshops. So the workshops from this week until end of week 10 is going to be 3 hours. The first 2 hours are just normals as like other workshops that we had before. And the last 1 hour is going to be for consultation. So it means that you got 4 hours of consultation before final exam. Okay, BAC, it's a budget at completion. Okay, so how much money you're gonna spend to complete this project when you do the plan value? Okay, so let's say that's again the renovation house. So yes, you want to spend 100,000. So this is the budget at completion. So you want to spend 100,000, and this 100,000 you put it for renovating the bathroom in the first 4 months and 30K. So this is 30K plan value. In the second 4 months, you renovate the kitchen with 40K, and this is the planned value. And then the last 4 months, you're gonna renovate the lounge with another 30K. So the sum of all these things is going to be 100,000, which is budget at completion. But at each stage, let's say after the first 4 months, the planned value is just to finish the bathroom with 30K, okay? So if by after 4 months you haven't finished that bathroom, or two-thirds of it is finished, so your earned value is the two-thirds of that plan value. So two-thirds of 30K is going to be 20K. Okay, so your budget at completion is not going to change. It's always is the budget that you plan to finish this project at the end of the project. Okay, so the budget that you have at the start of the project to do this job. So in this case, for the renovation, you put 100K in order to do the job. And at the end of the project, if everything goes all right, you need to spend 100K. But sometimes it's not. So your project get delayed, your cost is going high. Then this is going to be your estimated cost at completion is going to be different compared to the budget at completion. Okay. Yep. So BAC is the cumulative PV. So all the PVs are aggregated at the end when the project is completed. So you need to spend that amount of money, that sum of money. Yep. So the total sum of all the tasks on the project, all the PVs on the project gives you BAC. Yep. So in this question that we showed you, there is only one task, and it was at the end of the project. And so this is, and for this reason, the BAC and PV was the same. Welcome. Okay. Is there any other question? Please let me know. Otherwise, have a very good day. Have a very good rest of the day, and I'll see you next week. So if there is two tasks, one is 1,000, one is 1,500, when they calculate ETC, okay, what's the rest of the question? You can turn on your microphone, probably that would be easier if you want. Yes, so if you two tasks and plan value, if one is 1,000 and the other 1,500, the aggregate is going to be 2,500, and that is going to be your budget at completion. Okay. Okay, so I hope that I answered all of your questions. Will there be ETC for task one and ETC for task two? No. You're looking at the project as a whole, so not just for the task. So for the task, you can calculate the earned value and planned value, but when you're looking at the ETC, you're just looking at the whole project, not just the tasks. Yep. So ETC is for entire project. So estimated for completion of the project. Okay, no problem, Terry. Have a good one. Thank you all. Bye bye.